What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of the Tremors series? For me, it's a hot, dry, sandy desert. And I guess they wanted to change that up with Tremors 6, A Cold Day in Hell. Because now it takes place in northern Canada. Graboids in the snow? Well, that's a first. It opens up with some scientists out digging up core samples of a glacier. Or something like that. It doesn't matter, because you know that they're just here to get eaten up. They hit something while drilling, and the ground shakes. They try to press further, and graboid blood comes up from the ground. It's not long after that, one of the beasts erupts from the ice and eats them one by one. Now we head to the familiar landscape of perfection, but the small town has seen its better days. At this point, I think Bert's the only citizen, and he's living in Chang's general store. They say that Jody went off to work at some law firm or something like that, and she's letting him run the store. But let's be honest, he's squatting. A taxman comes to give Bert a hard time, because you just know he loves paying his taxes. Well, that actually seems to be the problem, because by the look of things, he hasn't paid them, like ever. So he gets handed the papers showing that he's about to lose it all. Everything Bert has to his name is now owned by the IRS, his worst nightmare. Just then, Travis shows up. So it's nice to see they didn't abandon the whole you have a son plotline, even if it was a little weak. Travis seems to swing by every once in a while to drop off supplies and check in on his dad, who's obviously a little upset over the whole tax thing right now. While he's cooling off, they get a phone call from the research base up north. Never mind how they got his number, I guess Bert's in the phone book now. But anyway, they tell him they think they have a graboid problem, even though it's icy cold and snowing. All signs point to the beast. Bert's skeptical, but one of the interns, Valerie, convinces them to take a look. They catch a ride with Mac to get to the research center. But on their way, they get attacked by an ass blaster. So that confirms it. There are graboids up here. There isn't much they can do up in the sky to fight the monster, but, well, maybe they won't have to. Just the propeller seems to do the trick. But now the engine's dead, and they're gonna have to make an emergency landing. She manages to pull it off, and everyone's safe and sound. But they get a visit from a neighboring research team, led by Mr. Cutts, who works for DARPA.
They are the acronym for evil,
which actually stands for Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or in other words, a government outfit working on a top secret mission. Right off the bat, Bert's pretty sus, thinking that they're using graboids to bioengineer a weapon. But he continues on, meeting with the crew that called him there. Only a few people to note here: Dr. Sims, Dr. Fritzy, Hart Henson, Swackhammer, which I'm guessing is a nickname because he built the facility, and Valerie, the girl who talked Bert into coming. And just take a wild guess what her last name is. McKee. That's right, as in Val and Rhonda McKee. Valerie is their daughter. So that's kind of cool. She also wears graboid skin boots. You don't see those very often. At the research center, they've come up with a theory as to why they've encountered the graboids where it's so cold. And it kinda makes sense. This is their original home. In order to survive the Ice Age, they migrated down to the desert. But these ones were frozen solid. And now, due to the warmer temps, they're thawing out and they're hungry. Dr. Fritzy ends up being a total wimp and just nopes out of there, leaving everyone else behind. But outside, he has to worry about the ass blasters. He hides out in a tower, and Bert has to come give him a pep talk, which is kind of funny.
I have balls of steel. Say it! I have balls of steel.
The two run back to the safety of the trailer, but Bert has some sort of attack that brings him to his knees. What's going on now? Travis goes out and saves him, and Bert wakes up in the medical bay. It turns out that what happened is Bert is now infected with a graboid virus. That's right, Because he was inside the belly of the beast way back in Tremors 3, he got some sort of disease that's now killing him. The only cure? Well, graboid blood, pulled from a specific gland in the back of their throats while the creature's still alive. But how are you gonna do that? Over to the DARPA team for a minute, and we see that they're doing research in a hot spring. I really only mention this because we have our first underwater Graboid attack. And you thought sharks was all you had to worry about in the water. Back to the main researchers, who just so happen to be fighting their own Graboid. All the comm towers were taken out, and they're in the middle of a canyon where the only road was washed out. So they have to deal with this problem themselves. Dr. Fritzy's too scared to deal with all this, and once again he nopes out, this time making it to a truck. Others try to save him, but in the safety of the truck, he won't unlock the doors. The Graboid attacks, flipping the car over and throwing the doctor outside, where he's promptly eaten up.
Inside! Everyone, now!
Good, he wasn't helping anyway. Inside, our heroes come up with a plan. They need equipment to work on the plane so they can get out of there. But in order to work, they need to make a lot of noise. And obviously they can't do that. So they come up with a plan to electrify the steel poles buried in the ground under the hangar, making sort of an electric fence that the Graboids can't penetrate. It's pretty smart, actually. I mean, it probably wouldn't work, but just ignore that. As they're about to make a run for it, Mr. Cuts comes in to inform them about what happened to his crew at the hot springs. Bert still thinks that he's the bad guy, and he comes clean with his mission. He's not here to control the Graboids, but to design an aquifer to send fresh water back to civilization. A pretty noble deed, and not something DARPA would concern themselves with. But okay, moving on. The Graboid bursts up from the ground. Another rando's killed, and they radio back to the hangar to tell them they're coming over. Travis makes a distraction with a four-wheeler, leading the worm away from them. He lights the tank on fire and jumps off, just as the Graboid jumps up and bites it, blowing up. But there's more out there, and they can't quite make it all the way to the hangar. Dr. Sims is attacked, and we get a throwback to the first movie.
So take off your pants!
But here, she can't, because she's going commando. Kinda weird, but okay. I guess they're setting up Dr. Sims as a love interest for Travis. As for the others, they made it to a drilling station, which seems to be safe, but how are they going to get Travis and Dr. Sims off the rocks? Well, luckily, Hart's been pounding energy drinks all day. So he has to go pee, and that's all it takes to get the Graboid's attention. Honestly, I'm surprised it took them 6 movies to do this trick. Anyway, it works, and they all can make it to the hangar safe and sound. Well, Bert has another attack on the way, but in the end he makes it too. They wire it up and shoot electricity down the beams, making an electric fence. And for a little while they're safe. Inside they start making bombs and gathering up anything they might be able to use. But don't forget about Hart, who's still stuck on the drilling rig, and he's in trouble. Everyone makes a lot of noise, getting the monster's attention, and it comes creaming into the electric fence.
Broke into the wrong goddamn hangar, didn't you, you bastard? Broke into the wrong goddamn rec room, didn't you, you bastard?
Their luck runs out right after that, however, because the power goes out, their barrier goes down, and Bert's getting worse. So they split up. Some go to take Bert to medical, and the others go to help out the DARPA group, who's been fighting the Graboids for a while now. Before Travis will help him, however, he makes a deal with Mr. Cuts to remove all the tax liens on Bert, and make it so he'll never have to pay taxes again. How do I get into that deal? Well, anyway, Cuts must have the kind of power to approve that, and they save him. Swackhammer makes a distraction and toys with the Graboid, and has quite a bit of fun while doing so. But now there's the matter of Bert, who's not getting any better. They're going to need to capture the last one alive to save him. So they come up with a plan, a pretty elaborate one too. The plane's fixed by now, so I guess they want to try to hook the Graboid onto the plane, forcing it to launch itself up into the air and right into a shipping container. As crazy and unlikely as it sounds, it works perfectly, and now all they have to do is fight off the tongues. Luckily, they don't detach like in the last movie. After all the tongues are dead, Travis can crawl inside, get the blood he needs, and use it to save Bert. He should get a little extra for himself because he's gonna need it now that he's been inside of one too, but I guess they didn't think that far. Bert gets better, Travis and Dr. Sims kiss, and they blow up the trapped Graboid, so no one can turn it into a weapon. And that was Tremors 6, A Cold Day in Hell. I think if you don't take it too seriously, then you'll enjoy it. Sure, it's dumb, and a lot of the jokes are middle school level of humor, but come on, what did you expect? This is labeled as a horror comedy, and you can tell at this point, Michael Gross is just here to have fun. I like the snow, cold weather idea being juxtaposed to the desert climate from all the other movies. And I thought for just a minute that they were going to be all preachy about climate change, talking about how it's been the warmest weather in years and all that. But thankfully, they don't go down that rabbit hole, which is good. There's a time and a place for preachy movies like that, and Tremors isn't that. The plot's okay, it's pretty much the same thing that we've seen over and over at this point, just with the snow. But honestly, there wasn't really all that much of it. I think it'd be cool if it turned out that the people who called Bert were the ones who were trying to bioengineer the Graboid. So in a way, Bert was working for the bad guys, and then he would have to team up with DARPA to take him out. The subplot of Bert getting sick didn't really matter that much, except for in the end, because now they had to capture one alive, which was pretty cool. Tremors 6, A Cold Day in Hell is probably the most forgettable of the bunch, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't watch it. Just remember, we're way off from the original classic that started it all. I give it 2 Graboid skin boots out of 4.
Returner crew managed to recover a severed head, a partially eaten pelvis, and a half-eaten testicle.
How do you recover a half-eaten testicle?